good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to the Armory. Welcome to my preview lounge. And as everyone knows, I'm half Arsenal, half West Ham. So I have to make this a big West Ham preview lounge. And I've brought two wonderful West Ham guests that probably aren't too happy due to the fact I also watched their game as well. We'll start with James. How are you doing, James?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Apart from having to spend 90 minutes of my afternoon stroke evening watching that, but I'm all right other than that, mate.
John, how are you, mate?
Exactly the same as James. It's just, I don't know where that last 98 minutes of my life has gone, because it certainly felt a lot longer than that. That's for damn sure. But yeah, other than that, mate, I'm tickety boo.
Awesome. Now, let's try and get a bit of confidence in you. How are you feeling about obviously Sunday's game? We'll start with you, James.
Dreading it is probably the I mean, I tend to go into Arsenal at home fixtures every season going, if we turn up, we've probably got a chance. Doesn't matter what form Arsenal are in, doesn't matter what form we're in, if we turn up, we've got a chance. But this year, this is just a whole different kettle of fish. In my view, Arsenal will win the league. And the way we're playing at the moment, Arsenal are the last team that we want to play. So, yeah, I'm absolutely dreading it, but I'll be there.
You'll be there. John, how are you feeling about it, mate?
Ever since we played Fulham at the weekend, I've had that little brief moment from Ice Age in my head, where the Sabertooths are trying to track down the woolly mammoth, and that guy's going, "I want a mole! I want a mole!" I've had that. That's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be an absolute mauling, I think it is. But the same as you, James. I'll be there no matter what. It doesn't matter. But you know, it's just Arsenal at home. Is normally quite an entertaining game. We've been coming out of losing positions on a too regular basis for my liking. But yeah, you're always entertained with the London derby, but it's another level with Arsenal, and it's to a degree, it's to be honest with you, I'm only really going so I can have a few beers with my mates before and after the game, to be fair. Numb the pain as much as possible.
Fair enough. I always look into the previous fixtures, so I always do the 9 previous fixtures at West Ham, and these are how have they come up? There we go. You have beaten us once in 9 previous. The last one you beat us in 2019. There's been a few high-scoring draws, which I'm kind of like, my eyes keep going to that. I'm going, okay, is that the prediction for this weekend? 3-3. That'd be a very entertaining game. But it's not great for you, is it? Let's be honest.
I mean, from my point of view, absolutely not. I mean, Arsenal is a game that you look forward to, but you dread at the same point. You know, I've always said, and I'm saying it in the preview that's coming out tomorrow as well, for that matter. I always say that you don't piss Arsenal off early. That 2016 game was a prime example of that. You know, and when we had when we were under Allardyce, when we were playing you guys at the Emirates, we were, what was it? We were 1-0. Sorry, 1-1 at half time, with a goal from Collinson, if I remember correctly. And then you guys absolutely came out second half and absolutely routed us. And I've got a funny feeling it's going to go exactly the same way.
What about you, James?
Yeah, I don't see. I can't disagree with any of that. I think, you know, I'm actually surprised that there's only one win. I thought there were more, but that's me just probably dreaming a little bit. But they're normally, like John said, they're entertaining games, but the difference in quality has always been a long way off between, particularly not so much the last 2 years, but particularly before then. That 3-3 draw in 2016 is probably one of the highlights, purely for the Andy Carroll hat trick. But yeah, other than that, it has been pretty dire. And I think particularly since we moved to the London Stadium, that 5-1 win, also in 2016, the big pitch, very, very similar to when we welcomed City. The big pitch really suits teams like Arsenal. And the likes of City, who normally come to West Ham and smash us 5 or 6. We seem to have got better at that recently, as you can see by the scorelines. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was another 5-1 this weekend.
Okay, go on and quickly get into the comments before I get the questions coming in for you. Pick up some Moss Greats countdown. I will give you the money later, mate, because I created it. Hannah's 1-1. Orban didn't score. Wow, he did actually look very good.
The pain in the backside for us. He was so
good.
He
was
I said in my watch along, if we stay up next season, I'd be very happy to have him alongside Ings and Antonio, 100%.
Yeah, and big up to Tony. Hope you're doing well. So the questions are going to have to come in now, and I do apologise. I have to ask it. I'm going to start with you first, John.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling about West Ham season so far? Sorry, I ask this question on every single one, so this one stays constant.
Well, that depends, mate. Are we got a ban on blue language, or do we have to keep this?
No,
PG?
you speak however you want to speak about your club, mate.
I do think, to be honest with you, I do think a lot of the fan base reaction this season has been an overreaction. I don't think it is as bad as people are making out. It's not brilliant in any shape or form. It's not. But this is West Ham. We're used to this. We're used to squeaking, being down at the bottom for every other season. We're used to it. But the problem is because of the, I wouldn't say just because of the outlay itself in the summer, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute. I just think because of the talent we've got there and how much of a polar opposite this season's been to last season, I think that's why people are saying that certain games like Newcastle and Brighton, etc., were the worst they've ever seen. I've seen a lot worse than those performances. You know, Newcastle felt awful at the time, but watching Fulham, we actually played better against Newcastle than we did against Fulham on Saturday. But overall, you can argue this is a typical West Ham season. It's just the fact that because we've been involved in a lot more cups over the last 2 seasons now, I think that's why it's hurting a lot more than it should do. But at the same point, if we didn't have the Europa Conference League to run in, I don't think we'd be as low as we currently are. And likewise for you guys, you dropped out the FA Cup recently, and your form's improved even better as a result of that because you've only got 1 game a week. But having a 22-man squad in a league of 23, 24, maximum 25 teams, that's also been hit us as well. The injuries haven't been that bad in comparison to previous seasons, but they have come at key times and to key players, especially our defenders. We've been terrible with injuries to the defence right from the start. A few games in, we had Zuma out, we had Ogbonna out, we had Aguerd out right from the start of the season because in the friendlies. And it's a makeshift for a lot of the season, but at the same point, again, we'll come on to this topic in a minute, but in my opinion, David Moyes has to do better. He has to do better than he currently is, but it's too little too late at the minute, unfortunately.
James?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think a lot of this season, the reason why there seems to be a lot more anger from the fan base around the position that we're in, despite us technically being used to seasons like this, is that we've been spoilt over the last 2 years, massively spoilt, and all that success was built on individual players, majority of them playing well above their station over the course of 18 months. There was I said this on our podcast earlier this week, that there was no way that Souček was going to continue to be the best midfielder in the Premier League for 3 seasons. 1.5 seasons was just as much as he could handle. He started tailing off midway through last season, and that's continued this season. The issue is that David Moyes continues to play him, even though it's clear to everyone, even the opposition, that he's well out of form and needs a little bit of a rest, needs a little bit of time off. Decisions like that from David Moyes hasn't helped, that he's stuck with his old favourites, despite spending 170 million quid in the summer, but still preferring his old favourites over those new investments. New investments of which majority of them are starting internationals, Brazilian international, Italian international. Yeah. So that's been a big contributor for me, is that, despite all the investment, the fact we've been spoiled, and a lot of those informed players from the last 2 years have been out of form this season. There's been no adapting from David Moyes. He hasn't decided to go, okay, well, this isn't working, I need to adapt here. He's stuck with the same thing. He's changed formation every now and then, but the general style hasn't really changed. It seems like the general message to the players hasn't really changed, and that's why we are where we are. We've been found out massively. We've been exposed. To be fair, this season, and that's because there's been no willingness to adapt. And when you spend all that money, which we were right to do, by the way, we were right to spend all that money after the success that we had. We should have won the Europa League last year. Didn't. Okay, let's reinvest in the summer and go again next season. They did that fine. No one was complaining about the investment or the quality of player that came in. But what we're moaning about now is the fact that nothing's worked. Those players are good enough to play for West Ham, but they've been signed to play in a system that doesn't suit. So they will continue to be a waste of money for West Ham until they change the manager. And that's why the fan base is so angry, because we are where we are. I mean, the only team, barring Nottingham Forest, in the bottom half of the table that hasn't changed the manager.
And they bought in twice as many players than we did.
They signed like 5 different squads. So, that's why fans are like, what on earth are we doing here? We shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be here. We should be in the quarterfinals of the Conference League. So that's the only part of the season that's gone well.
Yeah.
But yeah, we shouldn't be in the bottom 5 of the Premier League going into the last 8 or 9 games. We shouldn't be here, but we are.
Yeah. Well, that leads me into this question, and you're probably going to guess what it's about. Why do you think the board have continued to support David Moyes? Because I watched. I think I did the watch long last week of the West Ham Newcastle game, and that was painful for me. But because of half my family support West Ham, it was painful for me to watch. Now, I even called him out. I was like, "You've got to get rid of him now." Personally, that's just my as a non-biased fan. It's not me to be an Arsenal fan. New manager bounce and all that rubbish. I can't see how you're keeping him. Now, James, I will start with you. Why do you think the board have continued to support David Moyes this season?
Cheaper.
Seriously, what it is.
To be fair, he had a lot of credit in the bank earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And so I could see why they probably stuck with him a little bit longer than most clubs would have done in the situation that we're in. The best time to get to make the change was the World Cup.
Yeah.
They had 6-7 weeks to bring a new guy in. He's got 6-7 weeks to do what he's got to do. Then he's preparing for a January window, time to prepare, and then we've got the second half of the season to hit the ground running. New manager bounce, all that rubbish. But he's got time.
Yeah.
They didn't do it, and then we started after the World Cup. Obviously, it was that first game, Boxing Day against Arsenal. Lost that, unsurprisingly, but then you lose 4 in a row after the World Cup. And you're like, okay, well, time to make the change then. And then they still don't do it, and that was when it was getting like, what are they seeing, or what's he saying to them that we don't know, that isn't very clear, because it was obvious to everyone. It's still obvious to everyone now. I'm convinced that it's now purely because it's cheaper, just to keep. With every day that he stays in the job, it's cheaper for them to sack. When it comes to sacking him, with every single day that passes, it's a little bit less that they're going to have to pay him when they do get rid of him. And if I'm honest, I think now sacking him is probably a little bit too late. You might as well just stick with him now, and see what happens. But yeah, just that's a lot of fans will say that as well, because a lot of fans do think that the particularly when it comes to managers, David Sullivan likes to play it as cheaply as he possibly can.
John, what's your...
I can't really say anything more than James has really said, mate, to be honest with you. Apart from the fact that I think David Moyes has been kept on because it's a favour to the late David Gold. David Gold wanted Moyes in to stay in the job originally when he was interim manager before we appointed Pellegrini. He was a big advocate again, from what we understand, for him coming in again. And I mean, David Moyes, he must have video footage or something. I can't. That's all I'm going to say on that point. But I just can't figure it out. He criticises the fan base. He's doing a lot of Sam Allardyce style. Fans don't know what they're talking about stuff. He said it the other week. He said, "Well, we've got a lot of experts at the stadium." It's probably the people in the West Bank telling me how shit he is week in, week out. But also down to he's also pissing the board off as well. From what I'm hearing.
Okay.
because with things, I mean, obviously the results are speaking for that reason, but also at the same point, bringing in a player in Danny Ings as a prime example, bringing in a player that he's been after for the last 2-3 appointments, both times at West Ham and apparently when he was at Real Sociedad as well, and then saying in the press conference the other week, saying, "Well, we're not really sure how to use him." Sorry, but I love David Moyes, and James, as you said, he's got a lot of credit in the bank, but he's hanging on to that £1 left in that piggy bank of how great everything's been over the last 2 seasons. He keeps referring to every single time, and when you're spending that outlay of what was it after what we've spent and what we've sold in the 2 transfer windows, you're looking at what 156 something million pound all in, and then to say with a brand new striker, you don't really know how to use him. If I was David Sullivan, I would have sacked him there on the spot, quite frankly. But James, as you said, it's down to the fact that it's going to be he'll have a couple of million left, I think, for the next 8 games or whatever the period of time is now. But at the same point, would you really risk a couple of million in regards to the 120 million we could lose not being in the Premier League next season? He's not an accountant in any shape or form. Otherwise, he'd have more money under his belt because all his money is wound up in property investments. I don't think he's as savvy as everybody thinks he is, including himself. So, but yeah, the only fathomable reason is the fact that I do genuinely think when one of the things that David Gold said before he passed away is give him as much time as he needs.
I mean, I can see that. Part of me's thinking, but that makes it even worse if they're kind of doing it on the promise of to David Gold. I do wonder whether Kretinsky as well maybe not have had a say in it, but I wonder whether there's things going on behind the scenes in terms of him investing further, which is preventing a decision being made straight away. I don't know, because we know that he's bought 27% of the club or whatever it is, and we know that he's teeing up to buy more. Like it is, he probably will get Gold shares. So you wonder whether they're just deliberately not making that outlay because there's further takeover bids going on behind the scenes. Because obviously you don't want the club to have additional costs when someone's trying to buy more of the club. So maybe that's they're going, right, well, let's just hold off until that happens, and then like Kretinsky can make the decision, which we'd hope would make the right one. Again,
it's possible, but you look at Kretinsky's portfolio in terms of being an investor. He's very much in the background. He actually cares more about Slavia Prague than West Ham because he's been charged by the Czech FA for going in and having a go at the referees at half time for was it last weekend or the weekend after before last. He doesn't really give a shit about West Ham if you look at it from that point of view.
Yeah,
West Ham is an investment to him, and that's all it is. Obviously, of course, the reason why people have said that is David Gold's shares are up because obviously he's passed away, but there's a very good chance that that his family are going to take on those shares. And obviously, of course, everything about this month, everybody thought that David Sullivan was going to sell up because it was the day, literally the day after that clause, the embarrassment clause expired. That I've said that's never going to happen in a million years. It probably will in the next 2 or 3, but I can't see it this season, especially. I mean, how would you be able to sell a team that have been relegated from the Premier League and get the money that he wants, or sell a team that has just fought relegation and survived by the skin of their teeth? Is what everyone's thinking. Again, it's not going to happen. He's not going to sell for a long time. Yes, James, you're absolutely right. I guarantee you're absolutely right on that one, son. That there's a lot of stuff going on in the background, but there is in every single Premier League club anyway. But the only logical conclusion, and we know logic doesn't work in football, much as business at the best of times, but if David Sullivan does come out in the summer and say, yeah, David, we kept him on because that was a promise I made to David Gold, and then we've parted ways with us because he's kept us up, or he's relegated us, whichever way around it's going to be. Then I don't think there's going to be that much outcry because everyone's going to sit back on Twitter and other social media content and just go, "Yep, told you." See, we know what David Sullivan's like. We've had this for 12 years.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it? Right. This one, for some reason, when I ask the rival fan, they really struggle. We'll test what James and John thinks of this question. We'll start with John. What are West Ham's strengths that could hurt Arsenal? For some reason, this always puzzles the rival
we might as well skip to the next one. There's nothing to say.
But do you feel there's any strengths that you've actually got that could actually hurt Arsenal this Sunday?
If we're better at aerial duels, I reckon we could give you guys a bit of a taster on that one. Spoiler alert for my preview. I did say one of the weaknesses that we've noticed from Arsenal is they're still weak at in avoiding individual errors. So if we can get Granit Xhaka in the book, that would be a great strength from that point of view. But in terms of the bigger picture and over the 90, I mean, Antonio's going to try and dive as much as possible to get a penalty. He always does that in the London derby. He's turning into bloody Jack Grealish for us. He really irritates me with a lot of that stuff. But I generally can't think of a strength that West Ham have got because that we can give you guys as a weakness because of the position we're in. If you asked the question this time last year, we'd say, yeah, we'd be able to say, set pieces, blah, blah, blah. But now we're just trying to survive, much less trying to concede any goals.
Yeah, James.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like our set piece threat is like gone, disappeared, not been there all season, which was almost the backbone to a lot of our success over the last 2 years. So that's disappeared.
Yeah.
I would say that over the last few games, maybe not so much today in the Conference League, but I think Jared Bowen has really picked up.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder whether if he can be on his form, he's even come out and admitted it, that he's feeling a lot more confident and he's feeling like he's kind of getting close to his best form again. If we can get him on his game at the weekend, then he might be able to cause a few problems. You can still tell in the way that he plays that he's hungry for it. You know, one of the few players over the last month that actually looks like he wants to do something positive on the pitch and wants to try and wants to chase balls and wants to beat his defender and wants to get in the box. So I wonder if he's on his game, then he might be able to cause a few problems. But if I'm honest, there's not a great deal there. But I can guarantee Declan Rice has an absolute stormer because of all the links that are going on. He'll have he'll turn out to have one of the best games of the season.
Well, he scored his first ever goal against Arsenal, didn't he?
Yeah,
victory. So
yeah, all this talk. He obviously he's going to go in the summer. Don't know where he's going to go. Obviously, there's been heavy Arsenal links. Yeah. He will have a brilliant game at the weekend. Even if we get absolutely smashed, he'll be a standout performer because he needs to play well in these sort of games in order to get his big money move somewhere.
Especially it being on telly as well, for that matter.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know there is a question in the comments which we'll get to in a bit about that, but. West Ham's weaknesses that Arsenal can exploit. We'll start with you, James. I don't know if you watch much of Arsenal, but is there anything that you're worried about that we can take advantage of?
Well, name the starting 11, and there are the weaknesses. But the back four for me, I mean, have been pretty good, to be fair, this season. But defensively, we've actually not been that bad. I think we've got maybe about 6th or 7th best defence in the league. Or it probably was up until that Newcastle result. But so defensively defence hasn't been an issue. It's been going forward for us. So I would say that the pace and the trickery of your front three, whoever plays, is likely to be what Saka, Martinelli, and Jesus. I would have thought.
Yeah.
Like that concerns me a lot because defensively we've been good, but there's zero pace in our back four or back five, whatever he goes with. And we saw it against Chelsea at home. We managed to draw that. I mean, fortunately, Chelsea have been rubbish this year, but Chelsea for the first 25 minutes, the amount of times they got runners in behind. We caught them offside quite a lot, but the amount of times, I mean, they could have been 4 or 5-0 up inside the first 15, 20 minutes. Lucky they're offside a lot, but you don't get that lucky with all those offside traps all the time. And if Arteta, I'm sure, would have seen that and gone, right, well, that's how we're going to play against them. We'll get in behind them early. We'll cause them a lot of problems. And that's where I'm expecting Arsenal to hurt us, is just the pacing behind, because we've just got no pace there.
Fair enough. John?
Yeah, not much difference on there, to be honest with you. Probably the link-up play between Bowen and Benrahma and Paqueta has improved a lot. Really has. But the weaknesses of communication at the back. I mean, the Newcastle game we take out of the equation because 4 of the 5 goals were down to individual errors and no communication, especially the first goal. But there aren't any real weaknesses other than individual errors. That's half the problem. I think one of the reasons why we did go down in the route that we did against Newcastle was because every player was really stressed out, and when you're stressed, you make mistakes. But the amount of times I've screamed at home games and the occasional away game that I've been fortunate to go to as well, is just talk to each other. That's the biggest weakness. You get people. There's so much arrogance in the back 5 or 6. I mean, Areola is a very, very good goalkeeper, but doesn't talk enough. Fabianski doesn't communicate quick enough. You could argue that one of the biggest weaknesses would be Fabianski's lack of pace lack of speed in distribution. He hangs on to the ball more than bloody Adrian used to. And if you put him under pressure and he makes a mistake, bam, it's a goal. Simple as that. But you know, I mean, with every goal that you can see, there's at least 3 or 4 errors that have caused it in the first place, regardless of how beautiful the goal was scored. But yeah, I do generally think the confidence is going to be and the lack thereof really is going to be the biggest weakness that Arsenal are going to exploit.
Yeah, fair enough, guys. I know it's a tough one for you, and weirdly, it seems to be the easiest question for any a fan that comes on here. It's the weaknesses are the easiest one to answer than the strengths, and it's interesting. But before we do the challenge, which I have spoke to the guys about beforehand, so they're slightly prepared until I actually do it. Luke's saying here, big up to Luke. I know you've just said you've used to these kind of seasons now and again, but are you still surprised that you're still down there considering the players you've got? Or quick answer from John.
Yeah, very surprised. But again, it's down to the lack of communication from each other, and also the lack of amending tactics, as James was talking about earlier, from Moyes.
James?
Yeah, I've already said it. Like, it's all very well buying all these really good players that play for their international teams and play in the Champions League, but unless you're buying them to fit a certain system, which we didn't, a system that suits them, like, you're not going to win football matches. And that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, 100%. Big up to Fran. Hope you're doing well. Moss had you guys down as top 10 this year. To be honest, so did I. I'm surprised to see you down. It's painful as well to see you down there. Too bad no Kostic came, and that Sketchmaker was always hurt there. Always been an Antonio fan, but what been the problem this season? Just lots nagging injuries. That's been his problem, isn't it, really, guys? Agree with that? That it's just lots.
Well, weirdly, Antonio for the last 2 years hasn't really been injured. I think the last 2 years he's played more games than he had anywhere near it in any of his previous 8 seasons or whatever it is. The problem with Antonio at the moment is that I still maintain he's not a Premier League footballer. How he's ended up being our top scorer in the Premier League, I don't know.
That's why.
Yeah, true. Scoring 6 league goals a season for 10 years does it, I suppose. but yeah, I just like he's more often than not he's running around like a headless chicken. He holds the ball up really well, but he never looks like he's in control of the ball. He always looks like he's just flapping his legs about, and he always gives 110%. You can't fault his effort, but. His problem is that sometimes I think he tries too hard. If you watch him, he's knackered after 10 minutes of every game, absolutely shattered. So yeah, like he shouldn't be starting games for us anymore. I think he's more effective as an impact sub. Saw him against Ghent this evening. He comes off the bench, and we look at a different team going forward.
Yeah.
We're still shitting ourselves in the final third, but at least he's making things happen. He's chasing balls down, which Ings wasn't doing because Ings isn't that type of striker. So yeah, but for me, that's Antonio is done as a Premier League starter for me.
John?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, James, mate. I mean, he's one of the, I've said it many times, he's one of the players that you can be furious with and ecstatic with within the same breath. He's been like that for donkey's years. He does one thing that he really irritates me about him, and I love his passion. I love the way that he's if and when he does go, because he's 33, 34 now, so he hasn't got that much length of time. So that's one reason why he is the way that he is as well. But he just flaps around like a bloody Thunderbird puppet a lot of the time. All of a sudden, you just see him go, hang on, what, and it's just he's a winger. I don't care what anybody says. He's a winger. That's been converted to be a centre forward. He's not a striker in any shape or form. You watch him when he's, like, for example, when he makes his runs, he'll either make his run down the right-hand side when he's got the ball, or the left-hand side and pass it into the box, passing it to where he should be in the first place. That's the biggest issue with Antonio. We've played two up front. It works. If he's got someone to bounce off with, as it is with Scamacca, as it was with Anderson, as it was with Allaire, etc., you need two up front when you've got someone like Antonio being in the centre forward position, and it just doesn't work. And that's the reason why his goals are drying up. He fumbles the ball quite a fair bit. He falls over himself a lot of the time. Like you're saying, James, I think it's because he's trying too hard. He's making those sort of mistakes as a result of it. But he's a good bloke, and he's a great servant. But even though I was being flippant, genuinely the reason why he's our leader's highest ever goal scorer in the Premier League is because he's been with us for such a length of time. And like you're saying, he's had hamstring injuries, but that's only really kept him out for no more than 2 or 3 games each time over the last couple of seasons. Whereas a season, 3 or 4 seasons ago, he was out for a couple of months. So he's doing brilliantly on keeping his physique together. It's just he's not the end product anymore, and that's half the problem.
Yeah. Right. So Tony's saying here, West Ham already done better than the Conference League than the Muppets down the lane. No guesses about who that is.
Well, at least we've turned up for every single one of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've prepared enough for a challenge. Moss is always getting excited about the challenge. Big up to DWTT. Hope you're doing well. Really thought he would keep rising. Yeah, I think a lot of people did, but that's him done now, I think. And big up to BX Gunner 81. Right, so we'll get into the challenge, and as always, there is an intro. We'll do the challenge after. Okay, so gave the basic rules to James and John. They're both going to have to agree on the West Ham players. Both have to agree on the Arsenal players. But what also happens is it's always the home formation that we go with. Now, West Ham have changed their formation a few times. I've spoke to someone today, and they've said that you've done this 16 times this season. They've actually counted it: a 4-2-3-1. So 4 at the back, 2. I
don't know. It might be ending up what BBC Sports says, but I'm not really sure.
I'm happy to change it if you want me to change.
In all competitions, that sounds about right, but not for Premier League games alone. No, I don't think it's been. No.
Do you want me to change it?
Home games yet for the Premier League, so
I'm happy to change it.
I mean, we're better chance of getting 6 Arsenal players into a 4-2-3-1 than we have. Going a little bit more defensive, haven't we? I suppose.
So you're happy for me to stick with this formation because it is your team.
I mean, it's not really far off it, to be fair. Yeah.
Right. Now, do you want to start with the Arsenal players or the West Ham players first?
I think it'd be easier to start off with Arsenal, wouldn't it? I think
everyone seems to do that. I don't know why.
Yeah, let's do that.
Right. So, what player are you going to go with that you both can agree with?
I think.
Should we work? Yeah, no, I was going to say should we work back to front, but because as far as I'm concerned, the six of the Arsenal players are the goalkeeper, the back four, and Saka. That's it. Do you know what I mean? But
James, you happy with that?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how we'll do it. So we're going to have Ramsdale in goal. Yeah.
Yep.
Which right back are you having? Ben White.
yeah,
Cool. Is it Saliba and Gabriel you're going with at the back?
Yeah.
Cool. Let me just type these in. Gabriel is always hard to find, especially if I type it wrong. Let's just find him. There he is. Right. Which left back are you going with? Tierney or Zinchenko?
Zinchenko, sure.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to ask because it's you're going to be your turn.
But, mate, you can't have you can't not pick a former Man City player. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Striker. I'm going to guess Jesus, but you might surprise me to say Eddie Nketiah, but you never know. Jesus.
I mean,
it's a good argument, but personally, I wouldn't. I'd be putting Saka out on the right myself. What are you saying there, James?
This is for striker.
if we're sticking with just Arsenal players, then we'll put Saka out on the right, and we'll have a West Ham striker in there.
Cool. Yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry, my bad. I remember you said Saka now. Right. Okay. So here we go with the West Ham players. We'll start with the striker first. Which one you can go with?
Well, we've only got 3 to choose from, so it's going to be very quick.
I mean, in that formation, Scamacca struggled, but I think with better players around him, with Saka putting balls in the box, he might be all right. To be fair.
John?
No, I agree, 100%.
I think Scamacca's our best striker, technically.
Well, he is. Well, I mean, Ings is his best days are behind him. Unfortunately, he's still a good player, but like you said earlier, James, he hasn't got any pace. Antonio we've just talked about, is more of a winger, so by default, almost it is Scamacca.
Yeah.
Right. So on the left side, who are you going to have on the left side?
I mean,
I'm very, very tempted to go to Benrahma, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I know.
But Bowen could hedge it on the left as well. This is the issue.
That's what I'm going to say. That's what I was going to say is that Bowen. I know Bowen plays out on the right, but I think he'd be just as effective on the left.
Yeah, I agreed. Especially alongside Saka, those two.
Yeah.
Oh, imagine that for England. That would be good.
Owen, then happy.
Yeah.
Okay, Declan Rice. I'm guessing is one of these DMs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd put Paqueta alongside him.
Absolutely agree.
That's where he plays best.
Now, this is the last one's going to be I think one of the hardest questions we've got to go for.
Who do you want?
Maybe it's Benrahma as a 10.
He is good as a number 10. I'm not going to lie.
He can do it. He can do that. Yeah.
He plays his best football in that position. I'm not going to lie. So does Fornals and so does Lanzini.
Oh yeah, but Fornals. You want Fornals for his work rate, didn't you?
Yeah. Benrahma's very, very inconsistent, but ironically, he's still one of our best players this season.
Yeah.
It's
a toss-up between, for me, Fornals and Benrahma. I'm swaying towards Fornals just for the work rate.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm sticking in.
Fornals? Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Right, so this is James and John's challenge. So we've got
Premier
Ramsdale.
League 11, that.
It is a good team, to be fair. We've got Ramsdale, Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko. You've got Paqueta, Rice, Fornals, and you've got Saka, Bowen, and Scamacca. It's very good, and I will download it because I will be using it for tomorrow's preview as well to challenge to see what the Armory guys have done, which will be very fun as well. I have been told it is the hardest challenge for a very long time. I don't think that's any disrespect to West Ham. I think it's just trying to get their own favourite players in, and that's where a lot of people do struggle. And I know that people have been doing it already. Moss has done it here. He's gone Ramsdale, Soufal, Saliba, Agard, Ben Johnson, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Paqueta, Chris. Chris, very good. Jesus.
Who's Crisps?
It's just honestly, Moss is hilarious with his little comments sometimes. Luke has gone with Ramsdale, White, Agard. Well, you've lost already because you've put the one person that whoever put this person in was going to be an instant L, because I don't want to see his name in any of these challenges. Then you got Tierney. Yeah, I just no. Just many reasons, but it's a big no from me. Tierney, Harty, Paqueta, Rice, Bowen, Jesus, Martinelli. It's something to do with obviously off the field, but I just don't rate him. I don't know why anyone signs him, to be honest. Was going to go Bowen and Antonio, but not performing enough. It's not really about the performing. But as you know, Mustard, you know the rules. It's nothing to do with how they're performing. It's if we can make a good 11, then we kind of rate it. I think what James and John have done is actually really good.
A lot quicker than I thought it was going to be, that's for sure, and less arguments.
Tony might have gave a little bit of a clue there. Bobby is a cat person, and you hated the cat too. But yes, that is definitely. There's always one. There was one last week in the Liverpool game. If anyone picked Trent Alexander-Arnold, you would have lost instantly. He's not a defender. He cannot defend to save his life. Right, so let's 2 last questions, and then one little quick one. I just want a number for that one. But who do you think will win the Premier League this season? John, I'll start with you, please, mate.
I do think it's going to be you guys. I really, really do. I think it's going to be quite close. If you finish second, I reckon it'll be a point or a few goal difference, if that. But the way that what was it? You've only lost 3 games all season, if I remember correctly.
Something like that. Yeah, it's mad.
I mean, that's relatively impossible nowadays. Even Liverpool and Man City can't do that.
Yeah,
I don't. But yeah, I do generally think it will be close. But yeah, I do think it's going to be you guys.
James,
I agree. I think it will be Arsenal. I think the difference this season. I know there have been question marks over mentality at Arsenal over the years, particularly in top 4 races or title races, and whether they've got it in them to do it for the whole season. The difference this year is you've gone out of all Premier League winners from Man City. Man City's fringe players that can come in and just add that level of mentality, coupled with the fact that Arteta has also been at City under Guardiola, and that's just completely changed it. It took a little bit while for him to get going, but it just felt like just bring in the right players, invest correctly, and that'll be all the difference. And we're seeing that now, and I think that's what will get you over the line this year. It's just that title winning mentality in the dressing room should get you over the line.
Appreciate that, guys. Before I go into score prediction, I do quickly want to ask that quick question that someone put in the comments earlier. How much for Declan Rice do you want, James? And I'll ask you, John, shortly.
Joe, we had this debate in the podcast recently. I think, given the season that he's had, let alone West Ham's had, he's been good, but not world class like he was last season. I think that knocks a little bit of money off his asking price, plus the fact that it's another year into his contract. I would be very, very surprised if we got more than 85 million quid for him. Okay. But I would like to say that he goes for 100 million or more, but I think that ship's sailed now. I think if we were challenging for top 6 again this year, yes, 100%, but definitely not.
John?
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with any of that whatsoever. If we were in a better position, if Rice was a better captain than he currently is, yes, all right, he gives the good gab after the game and stuff, and saying when we're poor and all the rest of it. But if you actually watch him when there's situations, he's not a good captain.
He's all arms, isn't he? He's all arms.
Yeah, he's up or down, and that's about it. For a prime example of this is when we played Everton at home, and Fabianski was down with that facial injury. Rice was over talking to Moyes, getting some tactics advice with a few other players, and that was it. If that was Mark Noble, he would actually run over to Fabianski first and make sure he's okay, because he was down for quite a while, and then he'd go and talk to the Moyes. Rice didn't even talk to him when he was being walked off the pitch. Creswell had more conversation with Fabianski as he was walking off, making sure he was okay than Rice did. And that's so there's a big few things, but yeah, 70 to 80 million max for me. It's like that joke that Jose Mourinho made about, who was it? old matey was 100 million a leg, you know, and all that sort of stuff. You know, that's where it comes from. That sort of bullish mentality. But at the same point, I question the board's tactics on this and Moyes' tactics on this by making a captain who doesn't want to sign a new man who doesn't want to sign a new contract. You know, it's a stupid decision. Yeah. And I'll be very surprised if we get 70. To be honest with you, 70 to 80 is. But yes, okay, England international, etc. But you know, the Republic of Ireland stuff is coming back to haunt us now. Unfortunately,
I think we'll be lucky with the price because you got the English player tax where you know, the moment he's English, regardless of he's international or not, the moment he's English, he goes for more. But yeah, his value is dwindling with every passing week and with every passing game. But I think the club will hold out for 80 million. And I'll take that, to be fair, at this stage. I don't trust the club to reinvest it correctly, but that's a completely different conversation. But we'll take the 80 million quid and wave him off.
Bearing in mind his contract runs out at the end of next season, even with and have an optional extension on top of that.
It's good business then when you think about it.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. All right, I'll sign the check now and I'll send it off in a minute. Score predictions, guys. We'll start with you, James.
I think I refuse to give one in the podcast this week. It's just like I'm not. I don't.
You can go for a draw, win. You don't even have to go for a score prediction. Then you just.
I will. I'll go for it. I'll stick my neck out. I'm going to say it's going to be surprisingly tight. This is going to be wishful thinking, and it's going to be 3-1. And that for West Ham, that will be a tight defeat. To be fair, against Arsenal in this situation.
Yeah,
John.
That's exactly what I was going to say. 3-1. It's got it absolutely written all over it.
And we'll go 1-0 up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But either that, or I'll be very surprised if we actually get a shot on target. To be honest with you, the way that you guys have been defending recently is mental. But yeah, 3-1, and I'll be very happy.
And I have to be honest, none of us have spoke about this before we went on stream, but mine's 3-1 as well. It's weird that we've all gone for the same score. Let's hope it is. I'm Johnny, actually James as well. Are you doing a watch along for the weekend as well?
I won't be because I'll be at the ground.
Oh, you'll be at the ground?
Yeah, me too. I'll be there.
Okay. Well, I'll be doing a watch along because I live in Wolverhampton now, so nowhere near Essex anymore. So I won't be there, unfortunately. Let's just quickly go into the comments before he's going to Chelsea. That's definitely not happening now. That won't be happening. Yeah, they need to sell about 20 players at the moment, so I'm not too worried about that. Right. We'll start with you, James. Where can people find you, mate?
Yeah, so We Are West Ham podcast on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. All of it is at @WeAre_West Ham. So yeah, just if you want to go and check us out, just me and my co-host Will. Every time we're most well known and most popular for our opposition views. We always speak to an opposition fan before every game, even the European ones as well. So we had a Belgian journalist on for the game today, which is really informative. So yeah, We Are West Ham.
Thank you very much, mate. John.
Yep. You can find me on with that JPWHE TV on YouTube predominantly. We're on Facebook as well, Twitter, but don't really use social media as much as I used to. But yeah, so you know, we've the channel's been going for about 5-6 years now in its current form, and we've been doing watch-alongs for every single away game over the last 4. So even before COVID, we were the channel that everyone used to go to before COVID. But yeah, come and check us out. We've the watch-alongs are usually quite fun. We have music at half time, good conversation with loads of different supporters as well. And yeah, if you want to help support the channel, we're on Patreon as well, for that matter, for extended content.
Thank you ever so much, guys. Really appreciate it. It's been a great show as always. Well done, West Ham lads. Did yourselves proud, I believe. There you go. Thank you, Moss. You'll see me tomorrow at 7 p.m. back here with the Armory lads, with a special guest. Steve K is joining us tomorrow. Then on Saturday, I'll be back on Full Time Sports Network to do the score at 3:00. Moss will be hopefully better and be able to watch a British game due to the fact he lives in Canada. And then on Sunday, I will be here doing the watch along, and I hope it's not painful. I did the Liverpool game, and that was painful. I even did the West Ham game. That was painful. Not being a West Ham fan, it was painful for me to watch. I just hated seeing you lose 5-1. And to be honest, it wasn't totally deserved either, in my opinion, the whole 5-1. It was closer than the scoreline suggested. But guys, it's been a really great show. Really appreciate it. Appreciate everyone in the comments. And as always, before I go, and I'm sorry, James and John, but I have to say it, come on, you Gunners. Take care, everyone.